Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Folks, please do send in your comments. Please tell us where you're coming from. Please tell us where you're viewing from, and please send in your comments. Now, tonight we've got a packed show, and at the bottom of the hour, we have got now, I'm just going to check something that we've got here. I'm wondering if we may need to start again because it seems to be kind of slowing down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to end the stream and then we're going to come back in again. No, I'm not going to end the stream because I can't end the stream. That would actually cause a bigger problem than we can. But I'm being told it looks okay. Excellent. Well, at the bottom of the hour at 7:30, we have got the legend who is Max Dunbar, a good friend and a good colleague and a great activist for A Force for Good. Now, he was down in his personal capacity at the Tommy Robinson rally, which was held in London on Saturday. There's Max there with his red cap on. Now, he was at the Tommy Robinson rally, and he is going to be telling us how it went from his perspective. He certainly enjoyed it, and he's got things to report about that as well. So you're going to get it from, what's the word, from the actual person who was there, going to tell us how that rally went. And it was a very big rally, thousands of people in the centre of London at a rally that they called Uniting the Kingdom. And so we're going to be hearing all about that. Now, that's at the bottom of the hour at 7:30. We might bring them on about 7:25, but stick around for that. Now, in the meantime, what we are going to talk about, of course, is the very upsetting and terrible thing that happened in Southport in Merseyside. And we're going not so much to be looking at that as the reaction of the politicians and how the politicians have responded to that. And you might not be surprised to know that the politicians are far more concerned about the locals who got upset than they are concerned about the person who committed the crime and the mass immigration situation, which continues to bring in lots of potentially dangerous people into the country every single day. So we're going to be looking at the reactions of the politicians and explaining what on earth got into the politicians and why do they take this response. I'm thinking in particular of Mr. Humza Yousaf, Mr. Anas Sarwar, and Mr. Jeremy Corbyn, who's always lingering on there as well. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, let's just say hello to some people who have come in at the moment. Derek was first in, and he says, good evening, Alistair and fellow unionists. Summer has finally arrived today, hasn't it just, Derek? Also want to send my condolences to the friends and families regarding the current situation in Southport. Hello to Debbie, who's here this week, but last week she was on holiday, so she couldn't make it. Good to see you, Debbie. Glad you're in the house. And to TC, who's always in the house, who's always wishing good evening to fellow unionists everywhere, fellow lovers of our United Kingdom, of our much troubled United Kingdom these days. Hello to Dave from North Wales, and to Freaky Geeky, and to a chap here from Swindon, Ruben from Swindon. Hello to you, and to Alan, and to Derek from Armadale. Mark Ogilvie is watching from Forfar in the northeast of Scotland. Hope it's good weather up there for you today. Mark. And always nice to see Catherine. And Debbie says it will be good to see Max. Max hasn't been on for at least a year, maybe more. So he's always good. He's always good entertainment and always got a lot of intelligent things to say. And Derek says, go Tommy, to which he is referring to Tommy Robinson and his rally, which Max was at, and which he'll be reporting about, because people always want to know what's it actually like, what were the people there actually like. And so Max will be telling us all about that at the bottom of the hour. Hello also to people on TikTok. If people on TikTok can formulate a good question for me, and I know it's sometimes difficult for some of the folk on TikTok because they like just to be contrarian, but certainly please do send one in on TikTok and we'll read it out. We often don't read out stuff on TikTok, but we do have certain standards. That's the thing. TC says, I was also marching down the Strand. Oh, good for you. With my fellow white working class British Christian people. A persecuted breed these days, TC, a persecuted breed. Fellow white working class British Christians. Gosh, do they have a lobby group that would speak on their behalf? Imagine if they did, eh? Imagine if they actually had a government that spoke on their behalf. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Is that too much to ask for here in our United Kingdom? Oksana says, hi all. And Grant says, I think it's WEF agenda driving this excess immigration in Canada and the UK. The WEF has certainly nothing against it and certainly wants it to keep flowing, but there's lots of different agendas at play, isn't there? There's the biggest agenda is the post-World War II ideology, which has essentially neutralized anybody's ability to speak up for the white British working class Christians, because to do so would be racist. And if you're racist, what does that end up with you all doing? Oh, we all saw what happened in Germany in the 1930s. So that's basically the ideology that underpins what's happening at the moment. People are afraid to speak up lest they get accused of being that way. And it's been very powerful. That's the main ideological impulse behind what's going on at the moment. The neutralization, is that a word? The neutralism, the neutralization of opposition and the condemnation of it as somehow extreme, when in fact it's just really people wanting to defend their own countries. And Ruben says, this is a great channel. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that comment. Now, oh, Hux was also there. Hux says, I travelled down from Durham. It was a brilliant day. Good to know, Hux. Good to know. Freaky says, are you on Rumble? No, we have like 29 followers on Rumble, but we haven't broadcast on Rumble any videos, any live videos. But we're thinking of doing that. We're thinking of doing that, but it needs investment because we do things really seriously here. Art Lover says the UN contrived the Immigration Pact. All of these international organizations, they are also to blame. But ultimately, and I took issue with somebody actually on Twitter the other day. He said that we're fighting systems. And I said, no, we're not. Systems are run by people who oppose other people. We're actually fighting the people who run the systems, and they have names, and they're largely the politicians. They are the people who run things. And politicians can be subject to people with lots of money and subject to people with lots of agendas. But at the end of the day, it's the politicians that run the world. And we've got to see also the agendas behind things. And we've got to see who's paying the politicians. But at the end of the day, it's politicians that are running the country. It's politicians that are responsible for mass immigration into the United Kingdom. It's not some abstract UN or WEF the UN or the WEF could easily be told to take a hike if we had true leaders in Parliament who could tell the UN and WEF to take a hike. And countries can do this and have done it in the past. And certainly the people that with the money, they don't like politicians arising who will lead the people in those directions. You know, I was reading this stupid interview with a stupid historian in this stupid newspaper, the Herald, on Sunday last week. And he's some German historian. And he's going on about how you've got to bring down the leaders. You can't allow, because for his democracy, he says there'll be a democratic breakdown if disgruntlement finds true leadership. That's essentially what he was saying. So in other words, we've all got to remain disgruntled, and anybody who rises up to lead the people out of their disgruntlement and out of their sad situation, he's a bad guy who's going to lead to the breakdown of democracy. So what I realized from what this historian, somebody called Thomas Weber, whatever, was saying is that he defines democracy different from how I define democracy. I define democracy as people voting for their leaders in Parliament. He defines democracy as the maintenance of a system of control. Art Lover says, the trouble is certain politicians are, shall we say, persuaded by Davos and WEF and WHO. Yes, they are. But as I say, at the end of the day, it is politicians who can break free from those things if they have their own minds and their own ideas, and especially if the people demand it of them. Now, let's take a look at the situation. Let's take a look at the situation where I'm just going to have a wee chat here with a colleague of mine regarding the broadcast. Okay, now let's look at this terrible thing that happened in Southport. Now, I don't want to get into the terrible details about it, but we do know so far that there have been 3 terrible murders and others in very critical situations. And I just want to look at some of the comments that have been made on Twitter, mainly, and the extent to which this situation is already being deep-sixed. Okay, it's already being deep-sixed. And I think there was a chap on Twitter called Captain Benjamin. He made a very good analysis, and we're just going to put it up here, and I'm going to read it out. He says, police are saying the motive is unclear. Well, let's consider if the roles were reversed. An English guy travels half an hour across town to an event full of second-generation African girls and attacks them with a machete in a frenzy that leaves 2 murdered, it's now 3, of course, and 6 critically injured. Do you really think they would be saying motive unclear? Or would it be talk of the consequences of far-right rhetoric, an atmosphere of hate being created because causing individuals to act out? Oh, it's all about Britain's racism problem. The papers and the radio would be screeching it from the rooftops rather than it being a third-rate news item. This was a premeditated, cold-blooded murder, and it didn't happen in a motive unclear vortex. It happened in a country with a large immigrant population with second-generation children born here. They are told, and this is so critical, I would add here, they are told continually that Britain is racist. The institutions somehow discriminate against them, that white people are evil and responsible for all their problems, both now and in the past. In this climate of normalized anti-white racism, is it any wonder some among them feel justified in stabbing a soldier on the streets, attacking police officers in an airport, and now murdering little girls at a dance class? Well, so that was extremely well said, and I hope that that got a lot of traction, the traction that it was most certainly due on Twitter. But I've noticed that as well. We're really getting, it's being promoted to the immigrant population that they're living in a quote-unquote racist country that's been bad to them somehow in the past, to their ancestors. Of course, if you're going to grow up in that environment, you're going to hate on the indigenous people and the indigenous country in general. Yet this is being promoted by vile academics like the people I was referring to earlier. It's being promoted by politicians, is being promoted by the media, and it's being promoted by NGOs who are getting paid millions of pounds by the government itself with British taxpayers' money to push this pro-Britain is bad rhetoric. And so you're going to end up with crazies who do such things. I'm being told that there's more protests going on in Westminster at this moment against mass immigration. So yeah, you're going to get that sort of stuff. And we do have terrible, terrible leadership in this country. And one of the most terrible, of course, was Mr. Humza Yousaf, who does appear to have an anti-white animus. He does appear to have that. And he put out we're assistant producer there just contacting us, but everything is okay. We do have a comment that he made here. Now, this is important. This is Humza Yousaf's response to Southport. Our only response to the evil we witnessed in Southport should be an outpouring of grief for the children and adults killed in such a senseless attack. So straight away, it's like, that's the only response we should have, is just crying about things. There's no suggestion there that we should actually do something physical to stop this sort of thing happening in the future. There's no thinking, how did this happen? How come people are in some way disassociated from their fellow man? How can we stop that? And how can we make things better? And is there maybe too much immigration and so on? No. Just forget all about possible solutions. Let's just cry about it. Okay, now that's a leader, supposedly a leader of men, telling us that's the only solution, is an outpouring of grief. No, firstly, you're totally wrong when you say that. So he goes on and he says, if you use, and he's talking about the people who were kicking off yesterday, such a horrific tragedy to fuel bigotry, then you are the worst of humanity. So the people who are throwing stones are the worst of humanity. The people who are behaving in an unruly fashion, attacking the police, they're the worst of humanity. Well, what about the person that actually went and killed children? And Basil the Great here down at the bottom says, do you not think the person who actually committed the attack is the worst of humanity? Good point, Basil. Good point. So people like Humza Yousaf, they don't even see that. They're so blinded by their point of view that they can't actually see what they're writing. Now, we also responded to this, and we said, politicians like you, Mr. Yousaf, who encourage our country to be invaded by dangerous people and who will do nothing to stop it and who condemn those who speak out against it, are actually far worse, because it is upon your head that these murders fall. It is upon your head that these murders fall. And this is my point when I draw the attention to the politicians. They are the ones to blame. In a sense, whatever you may think about immigrants, they are the pawns that the useful people that the politicians use. It's the politicians who can stop this. It's the politicians who can turn it around. They are the ones that we must be addressing. Because, and I'll say it again, it is the politicians who encourage our country to be invaded by dangerous people. It is the politicians who will do nothing to stop it. It is the politicians who condemn those of us who speak against it. And they are far worse than anybody, because it is upon their heads that these murders fall. Budgie Burger says the politicians and NGOs and media are all of the same tribe. Well, they're all certainly of the same mentality, that's for sure. Charles says, 8 generations of my family have served. I was the 7th. My daughter is 8th serving at the moment. Well, let's put aside wars in the Middle East for the moment. So got enough to worry us about right now. Twigman says, it's a complete disgrace. Absolutely. Now let's continue looking at the materials. Yes. So today, Humza continued his absolute outrage against the white people in Southport who were kicking off. And of course, they were, in his view, the worst of humanity, and they are the problem. Not marauding, knife-wielding maniacs brought in from abroad, but in fact, the white people in Southport who are upset. So he wrote a big, long 2-page letter to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, today, saying that it was high time that what he called the EDL ought to be banned. Now, the EDL stands for English Defence League, and it was an organisation that was run by Tommy Robinson, and it wound up 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And Humza today was so outraged about them, thinking that they were still around, that he wrote a long 2-page detailed letter to the Home Secretary asking that they be called a terrorist organisation and banned. They gave up 10 years ago, mate, okay? But Humza probably knows what he's doing. Maybe he doesn't know that the EDL finished 10 years ago, but he knows that those phrases, EDL, have the power to scare certain people that he's trying to address. So he brings it all back up again. It's like people bringing up World War II history or something like that to scare people today. He's got to bring it all up again. And so he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing perfectly well. He's trying to scare people that there's some sort of far-right threat. And in fact, that's the real threat. The people who are upset about their country being invaded, they're the real threat. And, you know, he knows what he's doing, because he's a politician who divides people into friends and enemies. And you're either a friend or you're an enemy. And if you're an enemy, then he will go at you 100%. For him, there's no shades of grey here. There's no, oh, these guys over here are sometimes correct on things, and maybe we can deal with them. No, unless you're 100% on his side, you're enemy, and you have to be attacked relentlessly. That's how he divides life, friends and enemies. And it's a political way of doing things. And sometimes it can be quite effective, because there's no shades of grey. You're one thing or the other. And so that's what he's doing there. He's saying that he wants his agenda of mass immigration to continue, and the only way he has to stop it and to quieten the voice of those who speak against it is to essentially smear them as extremists in his view. Okay, it's not extreme to want immigration to stop, but he's going to call you extreme if you want immigration to stop. He's going to call you far right if you want immigration to stop. It's not far right to want to keep out violent criminals. It's not far right to want to ensure that every single person who comes into the country comes in with a passport and comes in legitimately. That's not far right. But Humza and his sort will call you an extremist if you believe those basic things, because he just wants the country to be invaded. He doesn't care. It's not like me or you who think about your great grandfather who fought in the Navy in World War I, or, you know, your mother who worked in the factories in Glasgow during World War I or something. He's not caring about any of that. He just wants to change the country. He doesn't care if the whole thing became Pakistan tomorrow. He doesn't care. And it's just so many people like him. They don't really care. They're literally not living in the same world as you and I. Their headspace is in a different world. You have to You have to see that. Their headspace is in a different world. So they move through reality in a different way than you and I. And for him and for others like him, it's, if you want to stop this, if you want to stop immigration, you're an extremist. You're a dirty extremist. You're the worst of humanity. And, well, we're not. And you're wrong, Mr. Yousaf. And so, unfortunately, yes, so he sent this 2-page long letter. Violence targeting police officers, blah, 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 is about driving forward the far right's hateful ideology. Well, it's not actually. We need to take action. I have asked the Home Secretary to use her powers to prescribe the English Defence League. And we responded to say, if you're a politician with more to say about the protesters than you have to say about the murder of children, then you are part of the problem. Because in that long 2-page letter, he had one paragraph at the beginning, which was platitudes about the murdered children, and paragraphs after about the threat of the so-called far right. So he's got more to say about a non-existent threat than he has to say about the actual murderer of children. He's more worried that people want to stop immigration than he is about the murder of children. He's more worried that people want to stop immigration than he is about the murder of children. And there are so many politicians like that, and none of them should be leading us. None of them, regardless of their race, class, color, creed, whatever. If you want to continue mass immigration into this country at the expense of the people of this country, you do not belong in your role as a politician. You are not, should not be a leader in the United Kingdom. And that has to be really pushed now going forward, because we're going to have 5 years of these sorts of people, regardless of what race they are, regardless of what colour or creed they are, in the Labour Party, in the Tory Party as well, in the Lib Dems, and it goes without saying, in the SNP and Greens, who are going to push open borders. They're going to push potentially violent criminals being allowed into our country. They're not going to care about the cost of living for you and I. They're not going to care that our children can't find accommodation and housing. They're not going to care that your children's getting bullied at school. They're not going to care that schools and hospitals are being overloaded. They're just going to care about transforming this country. And not a single one of these people who support mass immigration has a right to lead and to be in any place of government over the people of the United Kingdom. They all have to change their tune, and many of them will change their tune, or they have to step down and say, I'm sorry, our project to transform the United Kingdom has got to end because the people don't approve of that anymore. That's the way it has to go moving forward. So, Anas Sarwar throws in his stupid penny here. The scenes from Southport last night were horrific. Horrific, okay. I'll tell you what horror is. Horror is murdering children. That's horrific. Not throwing stones at police officers. I would advise people not to throw stones at police officers. It will get you sent to prison. You shouldn't be doing that. It's very dangerous and foolish of you to do that. And it's wrong to be violent in that way. But sometimes people kick off. Sometimes these things just happen. And it isn't, of course, the police's job to maintain law and order. So these things are not necessarily horrific. Setting a police van on fire is wrong. You shouldn't do it. But it's not horrific. Horrific is murdering children. Okay, but for Anas Sarwar, of course, he's not thought that one through either. So we cannot allow, he says here, the far right to hijack the grief of the families who have suffered so much, blah, blah, blah. They need space, time, love and support, not misinformation and thuggery. Well, of course, they need space and time and love and support, and they certainly don't need misinformation. But again, he did not tweet about these murders. The only time he rouses himself to tweet is when he sees people kicking off, like Humza Yousaf. He doesn't like people going against the mass immigration agenda. So yeah, we said down there at the bottom, a police van being burnt is wrong, but it's not horrific if you respect the meaning of words. A mass stabbing with 3 dead children is horrific. But politicians like you are responsible for the immigration which brings violence to our shores, and you offer nothing but platitudes when it goes wrong. And we got so far 222 likes for that, and Anas Sarwar got 257 for his stupidity. So we're almost ratioing him there. Ratioing is when your tweet gets a better like ratio than the original tweet. Anyway, people are not impressed. People were not impressed with that from Anas Sarwar. Now, and of course, Jeremy Corbyn came in as well with his point of view, which, guess what, was all about the threat of the so-called far right, these terrible extremists who want to stop the mass immigration that causes the violence in our societies. Gosh, he is actually the extremist. He is the extremist. It is these people who are extreme because they want to transform society in a bad way, and they do not have the mentality or the attitude or the morality or the backbone to even say we should restrict it severely. He doesn't even have the ability to say that. It's just open borders for all. And that's a really messed up and sick mentality. Now, we're about to bring on our guest, Max Dunbar. Let me just see what the comments are saying. This is our man, Max Dunbar. And Max was at the Tommy Robinson rally on Saturday. I say the Tommy Robinson rally, it was called Unite the Islands in London. Now, Max is actually on holiday. We interviewed him on the Sunday, but this is Max Dunbar. Folks, I'm delighted to have in the studio with me today our good friend, Max Dunbar, or the legend who is Max Dunbar, as he was coined many years ago, a great asset to A Force for Good. And he's back in the studio today to tell us all about his adventure at the weekend on Saturday, the 27th of July, when he was down at the big patriotic rally, which was held in Trafalgar Square, organized by Tommy Robinson, called Unite the Kingdom. And Max is going to basically give us his thoughts on that. And we're going to have a discussion around about that. It seems to have gone off extremely well. Now, Max, for the benefit of the viewers, I know you've been at these sorts of marches before. In fact, you've been at least one other that was organized by Tommy Robinson. Would you like to speak about that?
Sure. A number of years ago, I became interested in Tommy Robinson. He came to the fore politically just through football. I think initially it was the football supporters and these sort of people. And out of curiosity, I did go to 3 of his events in England. And the last one I went to, which was in London, also in London, was at the Tower Bridge. We crossed Tower Bridge from the south to the north side, and then we turned right in towards Tower Hamlets. We were prevented from getting into Tower Hamlets by the police, and during that march, we were kettled by the police. Now, we had to decide before we joined the march whether or not we wanted to actively take part in this march or be mere bystanders, because if we just were bystanders, we would not be able to really follow the march properly, what was going on, because the police kettled everybody and they told us that that's what they were going to do in advance. So we decided to join. We hadn't joined before. We'd been down to these events as observers, but we decided on this particular occasion to join them. And we were duly kettled by the police.
So when you say we, you were there with another?
I was there with two other people.
Mm-hmm.
We went down there.
And how many years ago would that be?
I think it was about 2011, 2012, round about then, round about that time. So it's quite a few years ago. And shortly, well, at the end of that march, as I say, we were prevented from getting into Tower Hamlets, and a number of missiles were being thrown at us by leftists who seemed to be allowed to stand at the other end of the bridge waiting for us. Some of them had Hamas-type banners in Arabic, and they were allowed to be there and to basically abuse the people with Tommy Robinson who were.
So were you expecting the same kind of thing when you went down on Saturday?
No, because there's been a big change since then. At that time, it was really very much football-orientated followers, and very few women, I would say, by comparison with now. Now, there's a completely different feel to it. It's more mainstream, and there were more women yesterday. Sorry, not yet. Well, yesterday, yeah. And it was quite different. The atmosphere was different from before.
Well, that's interesting to know. I think just checking there on the internet, there was a march in 2011. That was possibly the one that you're referring to there. Now, what was the deal yesterday? I mean, where did they begin? Where did they end?
They began outside the Royal Courts of Justice,
right, on
the Strand.
Yeah.
And I arrived in good time at Charing Cross Underground Station, and because Charing Cross Underground Station is quite close to Trafalgar Square, I thought I'd have a quick look at Trafalgar Square, because it's always a good idea to do a recce, effectively, to find out how the lie of the land is before you take part in anything, or even if you're organising it, especially if you're organising it. So I did that, and then I quickly about turned and walked along the route of the march, in the opposite direction, of course, to the direction the march was subsequently going to take, and began to see more and more patriots with flags and a few banners and so on my way up towards the Royal Courts of Justice. So it was a good feeling, and the police had seemed to have quelled the traffic. There was very little traffic, and I made my way. Didn't take very long, maybe 15 minutes to walk the distance, fairly short route. And once I got there was a big crowd of people and a very good atmosphere. It was more like a festival atmosphere. It didn't really feel so much like a demonstration, because the whole area was dominated by supporters of the country. And Tommy Robinson's people were there en masse. So, as I say, the dynamics were somewhat different to the dynamics of 12, 13 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, so much has changed in that period of time as well. Just in the last 5 years, let alone the last 12 years, there's been a huge change in the country, even in the last 5 months, let alone the last 5 years. That it doesn't surprise me that that sort of thing is now breaking into the mainstream, or at least more mainstream people are deciding to get involved.
Yeah. Well, the reason, in my opinion, that more mainstream people, so-called mainstream people, are deciding to get involved is because of the gravity of the situation that we find ourselves in now, and the dawning of the rather panic-inducing mass of immigrants who've been coming to the country, really, in the last even 2 or 3 years, you could say, there's been a huge increase in numbers.
Yes.
And this has really put the wind up the general population, especially anyone who's an urban dweller, and you can see their environment changing rapidly.
Yeah, and you say urban dweller. I think that's so important, because if you're living in the country, in rural areas of Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom at the moment, you're not seeing what's happening in the centre of the cities.
Yes.
Here in Glasgow, it's like a transformation, and it's very, very serious. And well, in Scotland, we can almost just like forget the political class, because they're just they're to blame for this, of course. And they're the people who have made this happen, and they've no intention at this stage of doing anything about it. And so activism is so important, because activism is intended to change the discussion. Basically, you've got two things. You've got electoral politics, where you elect somebody to make the laws, and you've got activist politics, where you've got people such as ourselves, such as you, who are trying to do things in order to move the discussion our way, to get the politicians to talk about these things, and to get the politicians to use our terminology in a sympathetic way. And so activism is so important, and it's good to see more people realizing we've got to do this, because our politicians are selling us out unless we, the people, do something about this.
Exactly. Now, the other thing I wanted to say was that it's easy for Alistair and me to talk about activism and so on, because we've done it and we're used to it. But I would encourage everyone who feels strongly on this issue, and I'm guessing that's a very large number of people, to become active. There's a big chasm, I know, psychologically between reading the papers or watching things on the internet and actually finding out about doing something. But if you can get over that psychological barrier and then actively seek out events or whatever that you can take part in, you'll soon find it's easier than you thought. And you'll also meet people that you wouldn't otherwise have met, like-minded people. And there's a very good feeling of esprit de corps once you get involved with a group of people who are keen to do things, and to basically do things for their country, for the common good of the nation.
Yes,
you'll feel a lot better. There's nothing worse than fulminating behind a computer screen or in a pub or whatever, and not actively doing something. Now, I know for some people it may be difficult because of their jobs, but nevertheless, I would urge you to do all you can to actively take part and to support anyone or anything that is to the benefit of the nation from a patriotic point of view, because now is the time to do it. This is really dramatic to say it perhaps, but it's an emergency because the country is being invaded. It's not too strong a term to use, on a weekly basis, and time is of the essence.
Yes.
We don't have time to wait until the next election. We have to be active now and change things now before the next election, because 5 years' time, it'll probably be too late.
Well, exactly. The wise words. Now, just to get back to the actual mechanics of the march itself, we've got some pictures here which we'll put up. So you set off from
we set off from the Royal Courts of Justice. Now the setting off time, I think, was delayed. I believe it was supposed to be midday, but I don't think we set off for maybe 45 minutes after that. But that wasn't a problem, because it did allow latecomers to join us, and it gave us time to become more settled and ready to leave. And it was a good place to meet, because there were trees there for some shade, and it was a very hot day. It was a very good view that I got of the crowd there, because I managed to find an elevated position under a tree, and I could see very large numbers of people. And the atmosphere was one of, I wouldn't say it was a party atmosphere, but it was a very good atmosphere of everyone together, and excitement and the tension, but tension in a good way. And then we set off, as I say, 45 minutes later. We just gradually started moving. And we moved en masse down the Strand. And as far as I could see, forwards and backwards, there were phalanxes of people carrying flags from Scotland, England, United Kingdom flag, and I believe the Welsh flag was there as well.
Yes, flags from all over the
the country.
I'm glad to say.
Yes, so it was a very good show of unity, and also personally, I wanted to show people that up in Scotland here, we consider ourselves to be as much part of the Union as anyone. And I flew Saltire so that people knew that I was from Scotland, and I got a few jokes, of course, very good-hearted response and humorous. And
well, you came a long way. You know, you took your whole day out to come down.
And I wasn't the only one from Scotland. There were other people from Scotland there. There was somebody who actually had a flag that was on a bigger pole than mine.
Oh no!
But yeah, and he was flying, or rather, he and his friends were flying this flag very prominently, and just ahead of me, I think, during the march. So that I felt good about that. That I wasn't the only one there flying a Saltire. There were a number of Saltires.
Well, what I always think is, if somebody's going to make the journey from Wales or Northern Ireland or Scotland to something British event like that,
yes,
then make sure everybody knows that you actually made the effort by carrying a flag, because there's probably a lot more people from Scotland there, but nobody knew that because they didn't have anything to represent them, as it were.
Sure.
But yes, good. So you arrived then in Trafalgar Square. We've got a couple of pictures here taken, no doubt, from a drone, I think, of the crowd. And in fact, somebody, it's not you, I know, but somebody's right in the middle there has got a Saltire.
Yes.
Which is good to see.
Yes.
And a lot of other flags of the other parts of the United Kingdom. That's one. And you can see there, they had 3 big screens. So there at the bottom of the picture, there are two big screens, one directly in front of Nelson's monument and the other just a little behind it.
Yes.
And then one on the far right there, looking up the Strand for the people who couldn't fit into the square, as it were. So very professional event.
Oh yes, it was very well organized, no doubt about it.
There's another one there. Yeah, very, very professional. I must say, I was impressed by the efforts really that had gone into that, because it's not easy to set up a stage and have big articulated lorries with these digital screens on them. I mean, that's serious organization. So you have to take your hat off to the people who put that together.
Yes.
Now here's a shot from the back of the rally, I think, or maybe halfway along Trafalgar Square.
Yes.
Here's one from the front and I like that one. I like the phalanx of the colourful flags.
Yeah, I mean, the square was absolutely filled with people, really, as you can see, chock-a-block, and it was wonderful to see that all these people there in unity, and good feeling, a very good feeling.
Yes, yes, and you weren't the only person associated with the Force for Good who was down there. This lady was down there as well, and she's even got an AFFG t-shirt on, which is fantastic to see. Always publicizing our particular organization as well. So that's great. Well done to Catherine for that. And yeah, so it looked like it went very well. What were the speeches like?
I was just going to come to that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I was only there for a relatively short time because I had to catch a train back. But I heard 2 very good speeches at the beginning, and Carl Benjamin was one, and then there was another speech from a man whose name I didn't quite catch, who was an army veteran of 22 years standing, and he gave a very good speech. And he was a very good speaker, actually, because he spoke slowly and clearly, and every sentence counted. There was nothing he said that was irrelevant or rambling at all. He kept to the point, and it was a very good summation of his views, and basically the views of, I would say, shared by certainly me and everyone else, I would guess, who was there at that event. He brought it together. He was very good.
Yes, I think he was one of the first speakers, and he was just contrasting the treatment of British Army veterans with the welfare benefits which you get by literally invading the country on a rubber dinghy these days. So he made a good point about that, which nobody could really disapprove of or even disagree with.
Actually, another thing I would like to add is that you often see, particularly written up on the internet against various articles and so on, oh, the government's doing nothing. When people complain about, quite right, they complain about the mass immigration that's been going on, people say, oh, the Conservative Party, they've just done nothing. Well, that's not the case. They've been extremely active, and you only have to see the way that these so-called migrants, who are nothing more than invaders, coming across the channel. And I may say they're the minority of the migrants coming in, because most of them coming in legally en masse. But the government is actively bringing these people in. Actively. They're not doing nothing. They're active. So it's always worth bearing in mind that, no, they're not doing nothing. They're all culpable. They're all actively bringing these people in against the best interests of the British people, trying to use the justification of economic growth and so on, which is a pretty thin one, if you ask me.
Yes, that's a good point, because we tend to think, oh, the government surely doesn't want this to happen. It's not doing anything to stop it.
No, they're instrumental.
They're instrumental in making it happen.
They're instrumental in making it happen, and they're all responsible for it.
Yes, yes, and everybody who goes along with it and thinks that it's right is also culpable in what's happening.
Yes, and now the other thing is, apart from the march I was on, I did find time to go and have a look at the opposition. I wasn't able to get very close to them because the streets were blocked off by the police. Yes,
because there was an anti-patriotic demonstration going on at the same time.
There was a march of the far left going on at the same time, and they were on a different route, but it was a route that clashed briefly with the route that we were taking. But the police managed to prevent an actual clash from happening. Anyway, I managed to find where they were and watched some of their march going past from a distance. And these hate crime, so-called hate crime laws that have been introduced really with the purpose of closing down any argument or debate against leftist policies that we suffer from. These people were shouting, if you hate Tommy Robinson, clap your hands. I mean, these are the people who brought in the hate laws. These are the people whose government we now have, the Labour Party. And they're actually calling for hate against an individual. Now, if that isn't hypocrisy, I don't know what is. But of course, we all know that these hate laws, so-called, apply only one way, and that's to anyone who has conservative or so-called right-wing views. They're entirely subjective, and the application of them is selective.
Yes, it's a good point. It's a good point. I don't think Tommy Robinson is one of the, what's the word that they have for the types of people that you're not allowed to hate on?
A protected characteristic.
Protected characteristic. I don't think he has any protected characteristics.
I think he's got a hunted characteristic, not a protected one.
Yes. Yes.
It's free. It's open season. It's open season on Tommy Robinson and anyone who may support him or his views. but it's closed season permanently on anyone who may oppose the government's views or actions.
Well, absolutely, and we have to hope that that Tommy is safe and protected from all the enemies that he has in this country, and fair play to him for putting it all together. And it's like what we're saying is that at least he's doing stuff. You know, it's some people say, oh, he's maybe not perfect in some ways, or he's rough around the edges.
Name me the party or individual who's perfect.
Exactly. You have to take what's there and warts and all, as it were.
Now, the important thing is to keep in sight what your objectives are, and you have to compromise a bit. And someone like Tommy Robinson's not perfect, but he's all we've got really at the moment in terms of a charismatic leader representing this particular view, and we have to give him as much support as we can, and the people who are prepared to put their neck on the block, who are closer to him, who support him as well. So we have to act in unity, and it's a battle, really. At the end of the day, it's a battle.
That's right. That's right. And you have to choose your allies where and when you can find them.
Yes.
And you don't say, I'm not going to join the fight because I don't agree with this person on that. I agree with them on 98 things, but not on these 2 things.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that the end justifies the means up to a point.
Yeah. So, do you think? I know you weren't there for the entirety of it, but did you get the impression that there was any kind of agenda in the sense that they had solutions that they were offering and next steps that they were suggesting or anything like that? Do you think it was one of those events, or do you think it was maybe just more of a kind of gathering?
I would say it was more of a gathering, a sign of that we're unified. As I say, it was more like a festival event rather than a purely political campaign as such. Yeah. It was really to get everyone together in a party atmosphere and to boost morale. There was as far as I could tell, there was no agenda for action beyond that, other than stating what the problems are and that they need to be addressed, as we all know. But of course, it's very difficult to say what the agenda should be, because you do risk running potentially foul of the law by so doing. That is the problem now, is that we don't really live in a democracy as we used to do. And people are having to be careful and circumspect to a degree that it didn't have to be before. So you just have to bear that in mind. It's very difficult to say how things will go from here. All we know is that now is a time where action is going to have to be taken. We've got a very short amount of time left to us in order to save what we've got, what's left of what we've got, and to try and maintain our traditions and culture for the next generations. It's up to us.
Yes, it's absolutely up to us. And thankfully, things are beginning to happen. And even just Saturday the 27th, a lot more people who previously were not feeling the need to do anything, going into the centre of London and letting their voice be heard, even if it was just clapping or cheering.
Yes.
Coming to the top of the hour here, would you say it was worth it going down?
Absolutely, 100%, despite the delays coming back up in the train, inevitable delays. It was well worth it, and I would do it again at the drop of a hat, even this one. So yes, I would do it again in a flash. Definitely would.
Good.
It's well worth it, and I recommend it. And it's a good day out. I mean, you're there to enjoy yourself as well. So it's worth it, well worth it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Max, congratulations for going down, for literally flying the flag, for representing Scotland with all the other Scottish people who were there, of course, and for making your point of view heard, you know, and adding to the big numbers who were there. And so well worth it, Max, and good to hear from you firsthand on your experiences and thoughts on that. So,
and I have to thank you, Alistair, for giving me the flag, Saltire, and the pole to fly it from.
Well, if there's one thing that we've got here at the office, it's a plethora of flags and telescopic flag poles.
Yes,
that's for sure.
It's something we don't have a shortage of at the moment.
No. Good stuff, Max. Okay.
Okay, Alistair. Been a pleasure.
Fantastic. That was our interview with the legend, who is Max Dunbar, who was down at the Tommy Robinson organised event called Uniting the Kingdom on Saturday, the 27th of July, 2024. And we're very grateful for him reporting back on his experiences there. Good stuff. Christopher says, great to see you, Max. And Catherine says, Max is always excellent. Alan says, that was an excellent chat. Wasn't it just? The fight must go on. Christopher says, the government are actively engaged in undermining the future of the British people. Excellent work, just brilliant, says Christopher, the true heart of the British people. And TC says, it really was a brilliant event and a brilliant atmosphere. Well done, everyone who made the effort to attend. Now, somebody's just asked, what is the flag in the background? Well, it is the Team GB flag, because, of course, it is the Olympics, and the Olympics are going to be held until the 11th of August, Sunday, the 11th of August. Now, today is actually the Hawaii Flag Day, the 31st of July. And we've got a pic of the Hawaiian flag to fly for you. And it is a cracker. Look at that flag. That's absolutely amazing. Okay. So we thought, well, 31st of July, let's fly the Hawaiian flag, and we can fly the Team GB flag next week because the Olympics will still be on. Okay, so we went through to our stash of flags, and we've got the St. Lucia flag, we've got the St. Helena flag, we've got the Tuvalu flag, and we've got the flags of British islands that some of you might never even have heard of. But we don't have the Hawaii flag. So that was a depressing moment, which was remedied by a quick visit to Amazon, where we purchased a £6.99 Hawaii flag, which will be arriving before next Wednesday. So I think what we'll do next Wednesday is, because we've had the Team GB flag today, we'll have the Hawaii flag next week, if only just because it's an absolutely brilliant flag. And how did that flag come about? It was because Hawaii used to be part of, well, I don't actually know. In 1846, the USA formally recognized Hawaii's independence. But then in 1893, they overthrew it in a coup d'etat. Wasn't that a surprise? Imagine that, the USA overthrowing countries with a coup d'etat. That never happens, does it? And somehow, unfortunately, they deposed Queen Lelukalani, with the ultimate aim being to annex it as a state to the USA. But prior to that, prior to the USA getting involved and messing up everything, it had been on friendly relations with George III back in 1793. when Captain George Vancouver of the Royal Navy met with the King of the Hawaiian Islands and presented him with a British red ensign. And ever since then, there has been the British connection. But then the Americans thought they would connect it a little bit deeper because it sits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and is a fantastic base for their aircraft and ships to generally annoy the rest of the world from. Sorry. I'm just adding my own points of view there. So there's that. Now, we didn't get to do an On This Day in British History, and we didn't get to do our competition because we were so busy talking about other things. But folks, do remember our new card is here, and it has a stirring message. Is your home here? Defend it. And you can get that at aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. And this was a 1917 recruiting poster for the British Army. And it's divided, the British Isles here are divided into the regiments, which formed the local regiments in the local counties. And it's all very clear. It's very clearly, you can read it all. And all this text down here has been put onto the back for you as well. And it's blank inside. So you can use it as a greeting card to wish people the best of British. You can use it as a remembrance card, a Christmas card, a birthday card, or simply a card to say hello to somebody. It's a really unique item, and you can get a pack of 6 for £8, which is the cheapest that we can swing it, folks. But really good to relive the history with that message. And this year, 2024, is the 110th anniversary of the beginning of World War I and Britain's entry into World War I on the 4th of August, 1914, which is next week, and it is Sunday. This coming Sunday, the 110th anniversary of Britain's entry into World War I. So get your copy of Is Your Home Here? Defend It greetings card. And of course, please do go to Amazon and type in One Big Country, and you'll get sent to a big book. You'll get sent to the link for our volume 1 of our big book for the Union. Search Amazon for One Big Country. And you can go back to our shop and you'll get our best-selling little wee book for the Union at aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. So many good patriotic products at our store, and it's the merchandise that keeps us going. It's the occasional donations that keep us going, and it is our monthly donors who keep us going. And you can find all these ways to support us at our website, aforceforgood.uk. And if you can spare anything, folks, please do help us to keep going. And please at least follow us here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, or retweet this. A lot of good information in tonight's program. We cram a lot in. Sometimes you can listen to people blithering away on the internet for 3 hours, 4 hours, and they don't actually say anything. We condense an awful lot of good information into a small amount of time. We'll be back next week, and we hope to see all of you then. So in the meantime, it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.